All right, so what did the Rebbe say? What did the Rebbe say? We're learning now Torah Or, written by the first Rebbe of Chabad. And the first Rebbe of Chabad is trying to explain to us what does it mean? God's left hand is under my head, and his right hand embraces me. This is left hand under my head. This refers to the severity of God, the fire of God, the judgment, the strict judgment of God. When, in extreme cases, when bad things happen to us, to the Jewish people, God forbid. And that's what elevates the head. That elevates, that is under the head. It elevates the head. And the arms embrace me. Okay, what is this talking about? So the Rebbe said, in order to understand this, we have to understand something very basic. And that is, what are we here for? What are we in this world for? So the message of Judaism is that there's a creator. And this creator is creating us all the time. And that's called God. And there's nothing really except for God. God is creating the heavens, he's creating the earth, he's creating the spiritual levels, the physical levels, and he's creating time. Everything constantly is being created by God. So everything is, so to speak, within God, even though that's not a proper word to say because it implies that we're like really something inside of something else. And really, God is creating everything. He's creating us as well. But our existence is within God's existence. It's something like if you have a box, so inside of the box is an infinite number in geometry. There's a what's called a cube, and a cube is made up of infinite number of planes. A plane has no depth to it, and a box has depth, so you can cut a box theoretically into an infinite number of slices, because the slices have no depth. And a plane has an infinite number of lines in it, because a line has no height, it just has length. So theoretically, you can make an infinite number of lines in a plane. Take a plane, you can make lines in it, divide line. And a line has an infinite number of points in it, because a point has no depth and it's got no length and it's got no height. It's just where two lines intersect. That's a plane. That's a point. So a point has no dimensions to it. So if there's an infinite number of points in a line and an infinite number of lines in a plane and an infinite number of planes in a cube, so how many points are there in a cube? So it makes no sense. What do you mean 3 times? But that's the fact. That's geometry. So that gives us a little bit of a sort of a comprehension, a little bit, what it means that we're inside of God. Let's take another example. How many cubes are there in geometry? How many cubes are there in geometry? That's a ridiculous question. I mean, the geometry is just sort of creates the whole idea of a cube. This idea, there's such thing as a cube, comes from geometry. So it's the same thing as saying, how many worlds are there inside of God? The whole existence of the world of us right now, of time and space, it exists within God. Something like one little point exists within geometry, and that's just how do you say it? To get us to a little bit to approach the topic. Because the fact is, there's much more of a relationship between a point and geometry than there is between us and God. God is infinite, but geometry has no consciousness. Geometry is just our ideas, and God creates all consciousness. God is super conscious, super existent, and we exist within God. And this God has desires, and that's Judaism. That God creates us and he has desires, and there's things that he wants us to do that we have to decide on our own to do. And part of this, what we do is we have to make this God's left arm under our head, and his right his left hand, whatever his left, and his arms embrace us. His right arm embraces us. So we're elevated by God's left hand, and we're embraced by God's right hand. So what is this talking about? What does it mean? What are we talking about? So the Rebbe said, okay, listen. There's a thing called prayer, and there's a thing called Torah. We have to serve God. Prayer comes from below to above. We elevate ourselves. We make the decision. We do it. Torah is something that God does. God gave us the Torah already. It's already here. And we just have to sit and learn it. We also have to do it, yes, but what we're doing is something, so to speak, not from ourselves. We're doing it, we're just reading the words of God and understanding what's already there. Prayer is that we have to arouse our heart to perceive God, to discover God. So that's coming from below to above. We have to arouse our heart, so to speak. We're the ones that do it. It's not already here. We have to create this love. And okay, says the Rebbe, listen, that's really not so. We don't really create anything. We're just discovering the love that's already in our hearts. But revealing love in our hearts is much more of a novelty than to understand the ideas of the Torah. The ideas of the Torah are already there. We just have to perceive them. It's a much calmer discovery. Right? It's not, but discovering the greatness of God, the goodness of God, the power of God, to discover these things. This arouses our heart. This arouses our heart. Okay, it says, that's why it says in the motto of Judaism, you have to love, listen, Jews, God is our God, God is one. Understand, Jews, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, God is our God. And after that, it says that you have to love God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind. All of your heart, said the Rebbe, that's referring to prayer. You arouse your heart. All of your soul, that's referring to your mind. That's learning Torah. What does it mean, all of your might? That means, what the Rebbe says, doing tshuva. Constantly improving, raising yourself up, being more aware of God, doing more. Doing more commandments, doing more prayer, doing more, a deeper, more genuine approach to the creator of the universe. Always doing, saying, thinking more good, to increase. And that implies a tremendously deep type of love and appreciation for God. Tremendously deep. And this, in fact, is inside of every Jew. That's why we see that there's a lot of Jews, like I say, in the Inquisition this was, and also we see other examples, totally non-religious Jews, totally anti-religious Jews. They think that Judaism is just the most ridiculous, negative thing in the world. It's restrictive, and it's prohibitive, and it's superstitious, and it's whatever you want to call it. And suddenly, all of a sudden, they feel their Jewish soul. They feel, wow, I'm a Jew. And they're willing to give their life. And sometimes the only thing that'll make them feel that they're a Jew is that they're, put against the wall and say, either deny your Judaism or I'll kill you. Or the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe brings a story that he was evicted from Russia. He was put into prison in Russia by the communists. And eventually, through a whole series of miracles, so he got out of Russia. That was finally it was in 1929. And he went to America for a while, and he came back and he was in Poland. And he was in Poland until 1940. 39. In 39, he was in the bombing of Warsaw. So everybody there was dead bodies all over the place. The Germans made this surprise attack, and they just killed everybody. They just killed as many people as they could for basically no reason whatsoever. And there were bombs falling all over the place. Now the state of matters in Warsaw then where there was a lot of non-religious Jews. And the Jews were really, really fractionalized tremendously. And there was a lot of non-religious Jews there. Maybe the majority, I don't know, but close to half, either from one side, more than half or less than half, but nevertheless, there was a lot. And among the non-religious Jews, there was also tremendous fractionalism. There was communists and there was Bundists and there was this. In any case, somehow or other, they all were in this bomb shelter. Maybe 100 people. And a bomb fell very near. Bomb started falling near, and all of them, they were all Jews. All the Jews cried out, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem. All of the Jews together. That's what the Rebbe writes. The most virulent opposers to Judaism and Torah, and the Jews that were, just, I don't know, what type of word can you use? What do they say? Apostates. And they all screamed out, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem. And it was all of a sudden it pressured them that they are Jews. Atheist Jews, communist Jews, Zionist Jews, Reform Jews, whatever, they deny God, they deny the Torah, but all of a sudden, it's all true. Torah, MItzvot, everything is true. And they suddenly realize that that's what's called Ahava Rabbah. That's what's called being a Baal tshuva. One second. Yeah, good. Oh, thank you, God. Thank God. Okay. Okay. We did this, but it's very good. But let's do it again. A person that gets this tremendously deep level of love, Vatsuma, this is what's called a Baal tshuva. This is called a person that returns to God, returning your consciousness, like how do you say, returning to consciousness. Returning to being conscious of who you are, that you're a Jew, and returning to the consciousness that there's God, God exists, God creates us, God gave the Torah. Because he's called a Baal tshuva, that he returned. Where is he returning from? Because he was the opposite, he was unaware of God. And his soul was in a dry wasteland, far away from God, no such thing as God. V'yizaku el Hashem, and suddenly he yelled out to God, like these people who screamed out Shema Yisrael. Azai, then Yitkale, there is revealed to him Ahava Rabbah Atzuma Kazu, this tremendous love, Liot Bechalot Nafsho, that his soul will expire really. So what happens? What brought him to this tremendous level of love and fiery, let's say, craziness for God? What happened? His low situation, the fact that he was far away, and this darkness that he was in, or that he put himself in, or that God put him in, because he was born into a situation, or that was his personality, or whatever. That's what suddenly caused him to burst out. Wow, I've been mistaken all my life. And that's what it means, Paro he grieved. That's what it means, Paro approached. The rabbis say, don't say that Paro approached when the Jews left Egypt, so Paro ran after them. Don't say Paro approached, but Paro, he grieved at Libam, that he made their hearts close to their Father in heaven. The Jews being pursued by Paro is the same thing like these Jews that were in the bomb shelter. Suddenly they cried out to God, we're Jews. And therefore, this love is called me'od, it's called very much, unlimited. That's like the rabbis say, when God created the world, he said he saw that it was good. That's the angel of good. And finally he said it was very good. He said that's the angel of death. Why is the angel of death very good? Because when a person sees that there's an end, and when a person sees that it means that I'm not the boss, you start to think, well, who is the boss? Is there really a boss? This me that I thought was calling all the shots, suddenly I realized that it's not so, that I'm being created. And that God really does create me. That's pretty good. He creates me. That's awesome. And not only creates me, but he also gave the Torah. and that I can know how to repay this amazing gift that he's giving me of existence and of life and of consciousness and of awareness. So that's when a person comes to realize this suddenly, it's that's called running from death. That's why it's very good. By means of this, there's a tremendous desire for love, this tremendous love, from God. Suddenly he becomes tremendously inspired. That's what you have. They had in these people that make revolutions, right? If it's a genuine revolution, they take up arms. What do they take up arms? A person wants to usually he wants to just be a calm, normal person, live a normal life. Suddenly, all of a sudden, there comes a cause, and he's part of this cause. This cause is part of you. This is who you are. It's something you must fight for. Right? How do they say in the American Revolution? These are the times that try men's souls. All of a sudden, your soul wakes up. Where are you? You just want to take it easy, or are you willing to fight, even to die for your cause? Okay, there's all sorts of false causes in the world. There's no doubt about it. There's all sorts of, from boredom, a lot of times, people go crazy. They're willing to take up any cause in the world, right? Napoleon inspired everybody for freedom, right? We're going to free the world. Hitler came along and said, you are Germans. Stalin came along and said, you are communists. Communism is going to save the world. We have to this. So people take up all sorts of false causes, right? That's all these other religions are. But the fact is, there is a real true cause that has the same, the same phenomena attached to it of suddenly realizing, wow, this is the real me. I'm going to go for this, right? There's all sorts of charlatans and fakers that convince you to buy the Brooklyn Bridge. You're going to make a lot of money. That's what all these other religions are. Judaism says there's a God and he's a creator. Worship only the creator. And as soon as a person realizes, wow, there's a creator, that's really amazing. He's creating me, he's living, then suddenly it's bursting out from the darkness. And that's what's called, his left hand is under my head. The left hand, that's the severity, that's the darkness. That's what it means, his left hand is under my head. The by means of this level of the left, small docha, this is called the left that pushes you down. Shahayalo Batchil, that it was in the beginning. Okay, and therefore Yorim Rosh, it lifts up his head. And he is elevated in the service of the head of the Shama. Suddenly he wakes up the top of the soul. Remember we talked about that? That only a little bit of the soul, the feet, the toe of your soul is really in your body, your day-to-day life, is in your normal consciousness. When a person realizes that who he thinks he is, his identity, is just a little fraction of what his soul, only a little bit of fraction of his soul is really activated. The rest of his soul, I feel like they say, according to science, you only use like 1% of your intellect. Something like that. I don't know. So it's something like that. 1% of your consciousness is aware. So therefore, you're easily fooled and you're easily drawn after stupid things in the world. And people become alcoholics and addicted and they get aggressive about nothing. They get depressed about stupid things, right? When the fact is they're being created and there's an infinite potential in front of them. But people get all confused in the world because only a little bit of the soul is in the body. When there is some sort of a test and some sort of a difficulty that a person has to reveal new soul powers, then that can, if it's for the right causes, it can even reveal the head of the soul. When you're malatazav, that's the whole thing of the advantage of gold over silver. Gold is like fire. Silver is like water. Gold is severity. Silver is like kindness, white kindness, like rain, water. This is the advantage of gold on silver mentioned in the Tanya, near the end of the Tanya. Habachina shuv, this is what's called the running to God. Running to God, that's like fire, like gold. And this level of shuv coming back into the world that comes after, this is the right arm that hugs me. So that left hand under the head, that's like fire. That's this desire to burst out from your ignorance, to burst out from your insensitivity, to burst out from your unawareness of the Creator that's creating you. The goodness of the Creator, the highness of the Creator, the wisdom of the Creator that's in the Torah, the will of the Creator that's in the commandments. To burst out of this, right, out of the darkness that you were ignorant of all these things, that's called the left side. The left side means all these forces that were keeping you down, that were keeping you in ignorance, that were keeping you insensitive. That's God's left arm. When you burst out of this, that's like fire. That raises your head. It activates the head, the top of the soul. And then after that, you come back to the world, for his right arm embraces me. Right arm, that's God's Torah and the commandments. That's like water, chesed, love, that comes from a high place to a low place. And they embrace the person, just like a person embraces his friend from behind. He doesn't let him fall. Sometimes you have the, you see your friend is falling, you run over and you grab a hold of him, right? You try, there was a couple of old people here in Chabad, and I would help them out, other people help them. One of the ways is you get in back of them and you hold on to them so that they don't, help them get into their wheelchair or whatever. So it is the Torah and the commandments. They go down to the level of the backside of the world, to be enclosed in physical things. The Torah and the commandments, they go around the person's back, so to speak. The negative things in the world, the worldly things. And when they use the worldly things for Torah and the commandments, that holds the person up so he won't fall. Why would a person fall in physical things? Very simple. When he is praying, so he's thinking about God. But when a person turns after prayer to his business, and he goes in his business, and when he's praying, so it's wonderful in the synagogue, right? Once in a while you get somebody who disturbs you, you say shh, something like that, he disturbs you. You go in the store, there's people who try to steal from your store, there's people who try to make trouble for you, there's people who ask a million stupid questions, right? There's all sorts of problems. Sometimes you tell you the help is lazy that works in the store. The things break, unexpected things happen, and can make you mad, and can make you angry, can make you disappointed, can make you frustrated, nervous. When a person is praying, everything is wonderful. He's together with God. He's thinking about God. His only problem is just to keep concentrating, to have his heart in the right place. But when he goes to work, he has to concentrate on his job. He has to do a good job. People can't come and say, "Excuse me, sir, have you got any? Can you tell me where the pots and pans are?" Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu. You can't do that. You have to be working in your job. The floor has to be clean. The sign outside has to be nice, right? If they have to treat the people with a smile, then you're not thinking about God anymore, right? This is not exactly. You have the Torah and the commandments, and that helps you when you're in the world to use the world and yourself and your personality and your emotions of the way that God wants. God is the one that's creating you. So therefore, you can always be calm. And if there's some sort of a big disappointment, you don't jump out of the window, right? And a person will turn from bad and do good. That's what the Torah and the commandments are. The Torah and the commandments are physical things that come down from a very high place. Tzitzit, for instance, is Kabbalat Ol. The tzitzit of the talit, this is accepting the yoke of God, throwing it over you, accepting the yoke of the kingship of heaven. Arba Parshiot, of the 4 paragraphs that are written in the parchments on the tefillin. In the tefillin, right? There's 4 different paragraphs written. The 4 paragraphs that are mentioned this commandment in the Torah are in your tefillin. These 4 parts that corresponds to very worldly things. Your ideas, your understanding. And what did I do? 1 second. No, I made a mistake. Pressed the wrong button, but it is not lost. Here we go. There, what I have to do. Yeah. Not what did I do? I didn't change pages. Okay. What's going on here? What is happening here? Huh? Why can't I do this? What happened? 1 minute. 1 minute. This is not usually something pressing. 1 second. Excuse me. For some reason, these buttons are not doing my will. There we go. Good. Okay, good. Okay. Wasn't as bad as I thought. Let's try again. Okay, let's try to change the page. Ready? Yes. Oh, so that's the 4 portions of the tefillin, which are in your. They deal with physical emotions in this world. They bring into your physical emotions in this world the aspects of God. The 4 parchments correspond to Chesed, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, and Gevura of God. The first portion, the first paragraph that's written on these parchments is Kadosh Li Kol Bechor. That's Chachma. The second one that's written in the Torah is Ki Yishalcha Bincha Mazot. Both of these appear at the end of Parshat Bo, right in the beginning of the book of Exodus. This is Hidbonanut, thinking about God. Shema Yisrael, there it talks about love. V'hayim Shamoa, if you listen to my commandments, this is fear of God. This is already taking physical commandment and using it to inspire your intellect, your understanding, and your emotions in your day-to-day life. Therefore, we say, every time you do a commandment, you say, Asher Kirishanu b'mitzvotav. What does it mean, Asher Kirishanu b'mitzvotav? Asher means to be happy. Kirishanu, that you made us holy, you married us. B'mitzvotav, with your commandments, your physical commandments. The word means mitzvah means to connect. So God takes these physical commandments and He marries with us. He makes us holy with these physical commandments. That's what it means. That's what it means. His right arm embraces me. So His left hand is under my head. That's the left hand, the severity that we look at ourselves and we say, I have to stop doing this. I have to stop being far from God. That's the left hand. That elevates us. And then the Torah and the commandments that we do, that embraces us so that we don't fall back down. That's what it means that Mount Sinai was all smoking because of God came down on it in fire. What's this fire? It says Mount Sinai, the rabbis say that there came down, Sinai is there came Sina, there came Sina to the non-Jews. Usually it means that when Mount Sinai came, that the non-Jews started hating us. They were jealous of us. And we brought this laws down into the world that limit everyone. But there's also another way of looking at it. When Mount Sinai came, we hate the non-Jews. What does it mean we hate the non-Jews? We hate the non-Jews which are within us. The natural soul which is inside of us, we come to hate it. Doesn't mean to actually hate it. It means not to trust it. This is the level of ra, selfishness. That's what Mount Sinai came down, this fire, and it brought sina, hatred, to the selfishness which is inside of us. Sina, Mount Sinai brought hatred, sina, to sina, hatred. Hatred to what? To the selfishness which is inside of us. That by means of this, it would say, Tachas asina senesam. That's what says that I hate them with an ultimate hatred. You hate the selfishness which is inside of yourself. But that's what the selfishness that you have, we like it. That's me. That controls me. I think that's who I am. I'm going to lose my whole identity. That's the whole point, is that you have two identities. One identity just wants to be like an animal, normal. The other identity is pure godliness, that you want to be a Jew. You want to serve God. Where do we get this whole idea? At the Torah. When God gave the Torah at Sinai, Mount Sinai, as then suddenly we realize what is really good. And when we realize what is good, suddenly we realize, wow, why didn't I realize this before? Because my egotism was blinding me. And therefore, this good that God revealed on Mount Sinai, this revealed a hatred for the selfishness which is inside of myself. Nimshach, because why did he get this hatred from? Because God came down on Mount Sinai. That he drew down into the world this fire. Like it says, from God's right arm, from his love, came this fire. A fiery religion. Dat means religion. To his people. That's what the Bahu Chol al Rosh Hashanah. This fire falls on the head of the evil people. Who's the evil people? Me. Evil means to be selfish. And the fire from Mount Sinai, this came from the good that God revealed at Mount Sinai. Suddenly you realize, whoa, how far away I am from this amazing, real good. It brought fire into us that we have to change ourselves. We have to burst out. That's being a Baal Tshuva. Then the selfishness was inside of us. Kihim is donig mivnei eish. Then it'll melt like wax in front of fire. That's the fire that God gave at Mount Sinai. Al derech zeh, same thing. It is all the commandments. All the commandments are either prohibitions, turning from bad, or they are doing good. Tzedakah, and the best good of all of them is charity. It's tzedakah terumam goy. It says by being charitable and helping others, this elevates the whole nation. Liot bebechinas chibuk. And then we are hugging God. God is not just hugging us with the commandments, then we hug God as well. Shalo yipared, that we should not be separated. That's what means the mitzvot are the language of connection. V'lo yashuv achor, it won't go backward. Rak liot imo panim b'panim, only to be with God face to face, like it says, Ya'er Hashem panav ilecha. God will shine his face to you, like it's written in another place. That's one of the blessings, part of the blessings of the Kohen, of the priest, priestly blessing. And that's the whole idea of the half of a shekel that we give. That's this whole Torah portion. It says how does it start off? When you raise the head of the Jewish people, tell them that everyone has to give a half of a shekel, a half of a coin, to bring forgiveness for his soul. That's what it means. You have to give a half of this shekel, this charity, to the temple as a kofer nafsho, to forgive his soul. Bifkodotam. It says when God counts them. Now the word pakod also means to be missing, to remove. Kamo asher yifoked v'yechsar, that you remove and you take away pagam ha'avot shalem. Ha'avot, that you remove the stain, the blemish of the selfishness of your own self. Then how do you fix it up? By means of charity. By means of this, you are attached to your soul to God. Look what it says in another place, with Rosh Legugalayim. Another place, that's going to be the next mimer, which I don't know if we can't have a chance to do today. God willing, tomorrow is Friday. We'll see what we do. Either we'll do this or we'll finish. But we finished this mimer. Again, let's just make a short resume. What did we learn over here? We learned a lot of wonderful ideas, but what does it really mean All these details. So again, the Rebbe is saying, this is the name of the Torah portion is called Kitisa, when you elevate, lift up the head of the Jewish people. So the Rebbe brought, I'm just doing a summary of what we learned in the last 5 days. How do you elevate, lift up the head of the Jewish people? So King Solomon, he got it. He said in his book, Song of Songs, that God, your left hand is under my head and your right arm embraces me. Says the Rebbe, your left arm under my head, this is the thing of tshuva, returning to God from the darkness, longing for God from afar, realizing that your own selfishness, your own ego is what's keeping you in the darkness, is what's keeping you far away from good, and suddenly being very bitter about this. That's fire. That's God's left arm. And this fire then opens up suddenly a tremendous love for the Creator. That's called loving God with all, kol me'odecha. And this brings us then to do the commandments and to pray. To do the commandments, learning Torah, and to pray. That's called God's right arm. More exactly, prayer is also sort of like God's left arm because it's from below to above, elevating us. We're thirsting for God. But in order to have this thirst in prayer, you have to have, first of all, the me'odecha, this realization that I am my worst enemy. On the other hand, I'm my best friend. God is creating me. He loves me. Incredible love, infinite love. But in order to feel this incredible love and infinite love, we have to stop loving ourselves so much. You have to think, what's the alternative to loving yourself? So some people say the alternative to loving yourself is depression or fear. You can't, right? Or says no. There's in stopping loving yourself. There's an option in the opposite direction, that you start loving the Creator. You start loving what the Creator loves, the whole entire creation. And that is done especially by the Torah and the commandments. And that's what it means that God's right arm embraces me. Again, the purpose of Chassidut is that we get the right idea about God. That's Chachma. That we understand that God is not a thing. He's not our enemy. He's not a dictator. When we say that God is the king of the universe, what we mean is not that he's separate from us. We can make ourselves separate from him. And then God has to command us. We have to look at God like a commander. And we see in the Torah that God did speak to Abraham, and he did take the Jews out of Egypt, and he did. So it seems that God is separate. But the fact is that God is creating the whole entire thing. And it's very, very miraculous, this whole business, how he's creating us. And nevertheless, we have total free will. And that's really what this next mimer is going to talk about. What do we have free will to do, and what does God give us? But here what we're saying is the left arm is our ability to become bitter, to burst out of our ignorance. And the left arm that God hugs us, that's the Torah and the commandments that give us the power to improve the world. Now let's go to learn the Davar Malchut.